Lake Mead is dropping to historic lows, and the warning signs around Hoover Dam are impossible to ignore. As drought tightens its grip, cracks, receding waters, and rising tension signal a growing crisis across the American West.
Historic lows. The U.S. Bureau of Reclamation projects in 2 years' time, Lake Mead may be set to be at its shallowest levels in recorded history.
The Bureau released its 2- and 5-year projections earlier this year, showing levels hovering at about 1,000 feet.
There is no denying the tension, an edge of alarm that ripples down canyon walls, carried in emergency briefings, flashing signals, and the unsettled stares of visitors who came expecting awe, but found instead uneasy revelation. This is no ordinary dry spell, as rescue boats idle in shallows where deep blue used to run, as sun-bleached bathtub rings climb ever higher, and as cracks appear in the decades-old concrete under a relentless western sun, the truth grows impossible to ignore. The American West stands in the grip of a drought whose aftermath spirals far beyond predictions. The Hoover Dam, the monumental symbol of human triumph over nature, now stands at the epicenter of a crisis that is spreading in ways few anticipated. The sense of urgency mounts with each passing week. Emergency water releases accelerate downstream. Towns and farms adjust to fractional allocations, and millions across Nevada, Arizona, and California track water levels as if watching a clock counting down to an irreversible zero. The danger goes beyond surface drought. A cascade of hazards emerges for infrastructure, ecology, the economy, and ultimately the survival of communities. Residents living and working in the shadow of the dam recount a kind of dread they cannot explain away, a sense that the ground beneath the Southwest is shifting faster than the plans meant to secure it. In interview after interview, scientists speak with striking clarity, letting the data define the urgency. This is not about some vague future. It is about the pressing risks building right now. What does it mean when the titanic walls of Hoover Dam, built to tame the wild Colorado River and anchor an entire region, bear witness to a transformation coming almost too fast to predict? The visible dangers are only part of the story. What unfolds above Hoover Dam's surface is only the most visible pulse of a much deeper reckoning. While tourists snap photos beneath an empty blue sky, more destructive processes are at work in hidden corners, inside eroding canyons, parched groundwater basins, and the ancient sediments underpinning the dam itself. Scientists like Dr. Lena Whitaker warn that the dam's stressed foundations, exposed pipes, and shifting loads are not just signs of drought, but catalysts for a larger environmental crisis set in motion by prolonged water deficit. As every week draws the lake still lower, unforeseen consequences multiply. Each relic previously buried, each newly exposed stretch of riverbank reveals fragments of the past and a glimpse of what may unravel in the near future. And all the while, one question keeps returning, growing sharper with each new measurement. What is truly happening at Hoover Dam? And why does the aftermath feel so unlike anything the West has endured before? The scientific answer, as Dr. Whitaker details, maps a stark new reality. Severe drought, fueled by intensifying heat waves and diminished snowmelt, marks just the beginning. In the language of hydrologists, a runoff emergency collides with a feedback spiral of water loss, escalating evaporation and accumulating sediment. Where once Hoover stood at the center of a limitless promise, it now marks the leading edge of a crisis, a dramatic turning point where old assumptions no longer hold. Each sunrise brings a new inventory of losses, both visible and hidden. Along the receding banks of Lake Mead, what was submerged for generations is now open to the sky. Laid bare by nearly 2 decades of drought, striking sights emerge. Rusted hulls of boats abandoned years ago, staircases that once led to thriving marinas now ending in dry sand, and even the outlines of settlements flooded when the reservoir first filled. These are only external markers of what's been lost. The real story lies in the numbers. According to Dr. Lena Whitaker, a hydrologist at the Western Waters Institute, Lake Mead's water level has plunged past the critical 1,045-foot threshold, triggering historic water usage restrictions and putting future allocations in doubt. The dam's turbines, once working steadily with the full force of the Colorado, now operate near the lower range required for power generation, approaching the dead pool mark, the point at which water can no longer flow past the dam's intake gates. The reservoir is shrinking into itself, Dr. Whitaker points out, referencing real-time sensor data. When water approaches these lows, risks accumulate. Power output can drop by up to 30%. Backup reserves are stretched thin, and the safety margin that kept water and electricity flowing even in hard years fades quickly. Engineers conduct emergency drills to test backup systems, but cracks in procedures, in parallel to cracks in concrete, appear under stress. Under relentless sun and evaporation, mineral deposits damage exposed infrastructure. Intake pipes, intended to remain underwater, corrode when exposed to air, threatening both water quality and pumping capacity for Las Vegas, Phoenix, Los Angeles, and the agricultural heartland fed by the Central Valley. The groundwater beneath is also subject to these new demands. As surface reserves drop, withdrawal from aquifers intensifies, risking subsidence and permanent loss of capacity for future generations. The magnitude of the crisis cannot just be measured by today's losses, but by what still lies ahead. Fisheries already hit by the disappearance of cool, deep-water habitat face collapse. As algae blooms thrive in the warming, shrinking water, dead zones increase. Whole ecosystems that depended on a rhythm of flooding and renewal now enter a spiral of decline, with endangered species like the razorback sucker and southwestern willow flycatcher retreating further toward extinction. In the deep silence below the dam, where the Colorado's flow has become a trickle compared to its roaring past, a new kind of aftershock takes hold. Sediment, once flushed by seasonal surges, now accumulates behind the abyss of concrete, raising the lakebed, reducing capacity, and further threatening water quality. Biologists document invasive species moving into warmer, shallower waters, competing as native life recedes. These interconnected changes form a web of consequences. The system is being pushed to its final limits in a way that could not have been foretold even a generation ago. For nearly a century, Hoover Dam and Lake Mead have served as the West's insurance policy, a promise that, through engineering and ambition, the Colorado River's flow could be controlled to secure a regional future. But an era of certainty is coming to an end. Construction plans once designed for stability reveal their true cost when water recedes, and the ground beneath the dam is left to the punishing sun. City planners and emergency managers try to adapt, pivoting to new protocols. Water agencies initiate Tier 2 and Tier 3 shortage declarations, special categories of crisis management now invoked across jurisdictions from San Diego to Salt Lake City. Dr. Gavin Moreno, chief engineer for the Southwest Water Security Network, warns, every dam, pump station, and canal was built on assumptions that are now outdated. We confront a chain reaction. One system's failure amplifies another's. Infrastructure, already tested by decades of expansion, is now strained in ways large and small. Reservoirs downstream run dry as upstream releases diminish. Concrete intake towers, designed almost a century ago, face stresses they were never meant to handle. Power transmission lines that once carried abundant hydropower now carry less, forcing utilities to lean more heavily on costlier and carbon-intensive energy sources.
Subscribe now to stay ahead of vital updates
and dive deeper into the unfolding crisis shaping the American West and the future of water security. Every new chapter in Hoover Dam's complex story is one you won't want to miss. Farmers across the lower Colorado face a disappearing resource as irrigation deliveries become increasingly unreliable, threatening the viability of tens of thousands of acres. Tensions rise as cities and states plead for new allocations and turn to emergency supplies. Beneath it all, Hoover's reputation for resilience, built to withstand both drought and flood, feels increasingly speculative in the face of persistent, cumulative decline. The region's major cities turn to contingency strategies, activating auxiliary wells, investing in groundwater basin management, and expanding cloud seeding studies, though evidence for large-scale effectiveness remains mixed. Dr. Moreno cautions, solutions that worked in the past cannot fully bridge the deficit we face now. When reservoirs like Mead drop so low, the entire engineered system becomes exposed at the weakest points. Once, the West's water storage system looked nearly invincible. Now, each decision about when to hold, release, or strictly ration water carries not just short-term implications, but the weight of future decades. As each foot of lost water exposes long-buried strata, Hoover Dam becomes a place where history and crisis collide. Portions of the landscape that last saw daylight in the 1930s re-emerge. Artifacts, old boats, and even reminders of the towns and ecosystems inundated when the reservoir first rose. In recent years, low water has led to discoveries of old remains and even skeletal fragments, reviving long-dormant mysteries and prompting intense investigation from authorities. Archaeologists and Native American representatives hurry to sites where petroglyphs and evidence of ancient habitation, lost beneath the lake for decades, are now briefly exposed. For many, the shifting shoreline evokes the sense that the landscape's deeper history is coming back into view, reminding residents and visitors alike that the dam's chapter is only one of many written into the canyon's vast record. But this unveiling is not without risks. Specialist technician Carla Myers describes hazardous conditions along the new shoreline. The silt banks, now exposed for the first time since the 1930s, are unstable. Visitors near these areas risk collapse and hidden drop-offs. Entire side canyons, filled with quicksand-like material, are now accessible but still deadly. Marinas, once bustling with activity, now sit stranded, hundreds of feet from the waterline, stark evidence of lost business and upended lives. Wildfire danger also rises as plants and shrubs encroach upon the margins left by the receding shoreline, providing fuel where only water once stood between urban fringes and the threat of fire. In Mojave County, warnings for flash floods compete with reminders that the ground is now so parched, even heavy rains bring only limited relief and can cause dangerous runoff as the hardened earth fails to absorb it. This transformation is relentless. At Hoover Dam, necessity and nature now share a stage where long-held assumptions and old memories are overturned, where drought uncovers both the forgotten and the unexpected. Dr. Lena Whitaker summarizes the paradox. We are experiencing a kind of geological unmasking. Each drop lost from Lake Mead reveals another chapter, not just of the modern era, but of the full sweep of this canyon's story. It's a reminder not only of what existed before the dam, but of what may persist after. As water drops, so too does another line of defense, the region's electrical grid. Every drop in Lake Mead's elevation reduces hydroelectric output, a direct relationship stamped daily into data collected at Hoover Dam. Dr. Gavin Moreno contextualizes. Hoover's hydroelectric facilities still provide a significant share for the Western grid, especially during periods of peak demand. Each foot of water lost means less pressure, weaker generation, and less slack to handle heat waves or sudden increases in consumption. The consequences build quickly. Grid operators must buy power on volatile, short-term markets, which can spike in price during shortages. Renewable energy ambitions falter as cities revert to fossil fuel peaker plants to fill gaps, increasing costs and emissions. Transmission lines, originally constructed for plentiful hydropower, now carry less, forcing cities to rely on less predictable or more expensive sources. In especially strained periods, rolling blackouts, a measure once reserved for rare emergencies, now appear in drought years as water and power shortages intersect. The household impact becomes impossible to ignore. Utility bills climb, and residents are asked to ration electricity, even as rising temperatures make such efforts ever more difficult. Water-intensive industries face hard limits, and contracts built on cheap, stable supplies are called into question, rippling across businesses and workers alike. Local managers must weigh difficult choices. Should precious remaining water be routed for drinking supply, or earmarked to maintain hydroelectric output through another desert summer? Dr. Moreno is blunt. The time when water and energy could both be taken for granted has ended. Hoover's crisis is not just about drought. It shows how tightly our systems are intertwined and how vulnerable we are when they fail together. The feedback loop intensifies. The deeper the drought, the less water for hydropower. The higher the cost for replacement energy, the more urgent each remaining drop becomes. What makes this crisis at Hoover Dam so striking is not just its impact on structures and systems, but the price paid by those who placed their hopes, homes, and histories on the promise of secure water. From riverfront towns to sprawling desert suburbs, every decision and tradition must now be reconsidered. Families in places like Glen Canyon and Boulder City recall the reservoir's heyday. Vibrant marinas, weekend fishing tournaments, lakeside barbecues, a boom that shaped whole communities. With danger warnings replacing picnic flyers and docks stranded far from the water, those memories now feel like they belong to another era. Cultural anthropologist Dr. Alicia Torres observes, "There is a deep trauma in seeing the places that nurtured your sense of stability become uncertain. For many, the shrinking lake is more than just a lost resource. It's a destabilization of identity and sense of community. People are caught in a new form of drought, one that is social and cultural, as well as environmental. Conservation measures are now a way of life in Las Vegas. Grass lawns disappear, replaced by desert landscaping. Water use is strictly monitored, and fines are levied for excess. In Phoenix and Southern California, public parks close, ornamental ponds are drained, and swimming pools are left empty. Tourism and recreation businesses shrink or shutter. Underlying it all, tensions rise as cities, states, and tribes negotiate treaties and allocations once thought permanent. Nevertheless, the spirit of adaptation runs strong. Community forums fill with debate. How much more can be restricted, recycled, reimagined? Tree planting campaigns and school water conservation initiatives are commonplace. Grassroots deliveries of water reach places where private wells fail. For Native American communities, whose ancestors have lived along the Colorado for centuries, the lesson is timeless. Elder Paxton Graywater expresses it simply: "We always knew the river was not ours to command. Now, we must adapt to what the river gives, as we always have." Alongside the human story is the urgent fate of the plants and animals on the margins of Hoover Dam. For eagles nesting on cliffs, for bighorn sheep seeking water, and for the myriad fish and plants shaping riparian ecosystems, the effects are swift and harsh. Dr. Lena Whitaker, reviewing field camera footage with her research team, explains, "When water disappears this quickly, ecosystems cannot adjust. The loss of wetlands eliminates breeding grounds for waterfowl and amphibians. Populations collapse. Predators leave or starve. Each stage of the water's retreat throws ripples into the food web. Small islands that once protected birds from predators now become accessible to coyotes. Changing water chemistry and temperatures favor harmful algal blooms, crowding out native species and pushing fish into ever smaller refuges as the water warms. In the river stretches below the dam, biologists record unprecedented fish kills. Higher water temperatures and dropping oxygen levels stress already endangered populations. Invasive quagga mussels and other non-native species find new territory on the depleted shores, while rare natives, like the Colorado pike minnow and razorback sucker, cling to life. Riverbanks, formerly stabilized by native vegetation, erode more rapidly as plant communities collapse, further undermining the ability to recover. The setback for these ecosystems is generational, if not longer. Even with substantial rain, Dr. Whitaker warns, it could take decades or more to recover what has been lost during this dry spell. In this collapsing habitat, every new acre lost compounds the warning for the future. Contamination is an emerging concern. As water drops and sediments are disturbed, legacy pollutants, like mercury and heavy metals from old mines, can become mobilized. That makes the remaining water supply even more precious and, potentially, more hazardous. These risks may travel beyond the basin, into agricultural fields and urban taps. For every warning, new uncertainties arise. Reports of wildfires in dried vegetation and of flash floods racing across parched ground show how even the ecosystem's dangers are evolving. Across the landscape, Lake Mead's crisis drives not just a loss of water, but a reordering of nature itself, one faster and more profound than most would have imagined. The mounting losses, economic, environmental, human, infrastructural, usher in a new reality at Hoover Dam. The American West stands on a thinner margin of error than at any time in living memory. Each planning session, each safety net, now reveals the starkness of the region's vulnerability. Quietly, engineers and scientists at the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation assess the latest readings, intake temperatures, flow rates, vibration levels, and shifting conditions around the dam's core structures. Emergency scenarios are drawn for dead pool, the point at which water can only be shifted downstream by extraordinary measures. What defines this crisis is convergence. Wildfires, heat waves, infrastructure failures, water scarcity, all collide at once. Planning is no longer about maximizing abundance, but about defending and sharing what remains. Conservation measures that were once voluntary are now strictly enforced. Farmers abandon megacrops for hardier, drought-tolerant alternatives. City officials rewrite the very blueprints their towns and neighborhoods were built on. Debates, once fixated on how much water could be drawn, now ask, how much sacrifice is possible, and who makes it? Each compromise weighs heavier, measured not just in money or yield, but in legacy and survivability. The Southwest discovers its historic model, built on exploitation of a generous river, cannot hold. Living under the shadow of Hoover Dam has shifted from assurance of prosperity to a constant test of resilience and creativity. As night settles across the dam and the empty marinas, uncertainty lingers in policies, in day-to-day life, in the choices that face every community. A crucial reckoning takes shape. Is this to be the new norm for the West? Does a society built on surplus find a way to adapt to a radically different landscape? One ruled not by relentless growth, but by hard limits and necessary restraint? For those following this evolving story, your voices matter as the region chronicles every challenge in water, power, and survival at Hoover Dam. The next chapters of resilience, innovation, and tough choices are unfolding even now. Beneath that unmistakable concrete arc, Hoover Dam is more than an engineering feat. Today, it stands as a stark reminder of what happens when nature asserts its primacy. Each exposed foot of canyon, each spreading crack, each gentle ebb in the lake's surface is testimony not just to the ferocity of drought, but to the reality that even our most formidable constructs are subject to the cycles of the earth. The aftermath, previously unimaginable, is here, etched into the landscape, written in lost futures, and woven into the consciousness of an entire region. As the story of Hoover Dam continues, the challenge is clear: to find hope, sustainability, and perhaps humility somewhere deeper than the bottom of a receding lake.